MAGA versus MAGA Georgia election exposes divisions in Trump's base. Trump revokes basis of U.S. climate regulation, ends vehicle emission standards. Minnesota ice drawdown underway and surge should end, Trump's border czar says. France's Macron says time for Europe to become geopolitical power. India to build world's second underwater road-cum-rail tunnel in Assam. U.S. President Donald Trump is facing an unexpected test of his influence within the Republican Party, as his endorsement has failed to clear the field in a key congressional race in Georgia. Trump backed former local prosecutor Clay Fuller to replace outgoing lawmaker Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia's 14th congressional district, calling Fuller a strong supporter of the Make America Great Again movement. Despite the endorsement, 14 other Republicans are still running in the 10th of March special election. Early voting begins Monday. 3 Democrats and 1 independent are also contesting the seat. Greene resigned from Congress in January following a public fallout with Trump, leaving behind a district long considered a MAGA stronghold. Since her departure, several Republican candidates have positioned themselves as the true heirs to Trump-style populism. Interviews with voters suggest Trump's backing is influential but not decisive. Many Republicans said they remain undecided and believe local representation matters more than national endorsements. Political analysts say the crowded race reflects broader shifts within the MAGA movement, which remains loyal to Trump but increasingly divided over what that loyalty means in practice. The infighting could weaken Republican unity ahead of November's midterm elections, potentially giving Democrats an opening if the party fails to consolidate support in competitive districts. The administration of Donald Trump has announced the repeal of a key scientific finding that classified greenhouse gas emissions as a danger to human health, marking the most significant rollback of U.S. climate policy in years. The move overturns the so-called endangerment finding, adopted in 2009 under former President Barack Obama, and eliminates federal tailpipe emission standards for cars and trucks. Trump said the decision would reduce costs for consumers and revive the auto industry, calling it the biggest deregulatory action in U.S. history. The Environmental Protection Agency said the original finding relied on a flawed interpretation of the Clean Air Act, which it argued was intended to regulate pollutants with local health effects, not global climate change. Trump announced the repeal alongside EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin and Budget Director Russ Vought, a key figure behind the conservative policy blueprint Project 2025. Zeldin said the administration had dismantled what he described as the most consequential climate regulation of the past 15 years. Critics strongly condemned the move. Obama said ending the rule would make Americans less safe, less healthy, and less able to fight climate change, accusing the administration of prioritizing fossil fuel interests. U.S. President Donald Trump's border czar Tom Homan said on Wednesday that a major drawdown of immigration enforcement agents in Minnesota is underway and that the special operation there should come to an end. Under Operation Metro Surge, the Trump administration deployed about 3,000 armed immigration agents to Minnesota by the end of January, focusing mainly on Minneapolis, as part of a crackdown on undocumented migrants. I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude, Homan told reporters at a press conference. Homan said around 700 agents had already been withdrawn last week, and that many of the remaining personnel sent from other states would return home in the coming days. He cited what he described as unprecedented cooperation with local law enforcement in Minnesota as one reason for winding down the operation. The enforcement surge has faced strong opposition from Democratic leaders, including Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, as well as local officials. The presence of heavily armed agents, often wearing face masks and military-style gear, has sparked repeated protests in Minneapolis, with residents confronting officers by blowing whistles and recording their actions on mobile phones. French President Emmanuel Macron has called on Europe to adopt long-term strategic thinking and strengthen its defense posture, including developing deep-strike military capabilities and reassessing the role of France's nuclear deterrent in Europe's future security framework. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference on Friday, Macron rejected claims that Europe is in decline and defended efforts to counter disinformation and regulate social media, which he said threaten democratic systems. "This is the right time for audacity. This is the right time for a strong Europe," Macron said, adding that Europe must learn to act as a geopolitical power. Macron warned that even if a peace deal is reached to end Russia's war in Ukraine, Europe would still face a hostile Russia and must not accept weak or temporary agreements that fail to address underlying security threats. He said European nations should launch broad consultations to reshape the continent's security architecture, which he described as outdated and rooted in Cold War thinking. Discussions have already begun with Britain and Germany, and Macron said he wants to expand them to include all European partners. The French president also confirmed he will soon outline his vision for how France's nuclear deterrent could contribute to European security, stressing that any changes would respect France's constitutional control over its nuclear doctrine. The Indian government has approved the construction of the country's first underwater road-cum-rail tunnel, to be built beneath the Brahmaputra River in the northeastern state of Assam. The decision was cleared on the 13th of February by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Narendra Modi, an official statement said on Friday. The 15.79-kilometer four-lane access-controlled tunnel will connect Gopur and Numaligarh at an estimated cost of 18 rupees 662 crore. The government said it will be India's first and the world's second underwater road and rail tunnel. Currently, travel between Numaligarh and Gopur requires a 240-kilometer road journey via the Kalia-Bhamora bridge, taking around 6 hours. The tunnel is expected to drastically reduce travel time and improve year-round connectivity. The project aims to boost economic growth in Assam and neighboring northeastern states such as Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland by easing freight movement and cutting logistics costs. Officials said the tunnel will connect with 2 national highways and 2 railway lines, linking major economic, social, tourism and logistics hubs. It will also improve access to railway stations, airports and inland waterways across the region. The government estimates the project will generate around 8 million direct and indirect jobs during construction and operation.